Okay, here we go. Welcome, Chet. Chet,
How
for
you doing,
those who,
Mark?
who want to be familiar with his journey, perhaps, connected with Chet early this year in an entrepreneurs community, and immediately I thought, this is my kind of guy, my kind of coach, because within the community, it was very much what you'd expect in terms of entrepreneurship coaching, which are fantastic. Um, but it was generally the kind of advice that you hear in this kind of space. And what I noticed from Chet is that he was doing things that think a little bit differently, and even what I would call intuitive coaching. So he would stop, pause, and actually wait for guidance to come in on a particular question, which really intrigued me because that is the kind of work that I had been doing for several years within a kind of healing community that I was part of, and to see it
Mm,
happening in the entrepreneur space, I thought was really powerful. And from there, I mean, Chet, just for those who maybe not aware, um, very successful author, has written some very powerful business books and a very powerful coach in his own right. And just kind of connecting with him since and seeing his content on LinkedIn, very, very interesting because he challenges a lot of the established norms in the space. And I thought this could be a really powerful conversation about entrepreneurship in particular, because for me, it isn't just about, oh, well, I'll create this business that can support me financially. As we were talking before we went live today, it's a fantastic vehicle for what I call, well, you could call it awakening, you could call it self-realization, but basically
mm,
just uncovering your true power as a human being, because it brings up all of your stuff, your past conditioning, your past traumas. It brings them to the surface. You have to look at them. You have to find a way through them in order to move to the next level of yourself. So this could be a really powerful conversation. I said to Chet before we started, I probably won't be able to do it justice in an hour today, so it may be part of a series because there's so much I want to discuss. But first of all, Chet, thanks so much for joining today. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. I'd love to go into a little bit first, your background of your own story. Like what brought you to the work that you do today, and what is your past? What kind of past experiences have shaped you and your kind of methodology and your process that you help people with today?
sure. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here and looking forward to our conversation or conversations as they may
Yes,
arise. Well, funny you should ask about my story because I wrote an email today, which I haven't sent out yet, but I think that it could be the perfect summary of exactly what you asked, my story and what led me here today. I feel really cool to read this email out and we can see
great.
where that see where
Love
that
that.
goes. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
All right. And this is very related to our topic, and it's very related to um, what we're about to talk about, I'm sure, in that we have these personal realizations, right? We have these moments of understanding, awakening, this journey of healing, and that's not separate from our work.
Mm.
And actually, the trick and the truth is, okay, how do we take the experience that we have in our lives, the things that we've gone through? I know you talk about this a lot.
Mm.
Our our truths, our calling, the journey that we've undertaken, the realizations that we have, the evolution of ourselves, and infuse and integrate that into our work, into our service. To me, that's what we're talking about here
Mm.
fundamentally, right?
Exactly, exactly. And you said something really interesting. We talked about it just before we started today. In fact, we should have started recording earlier. It was great stuff about,
Always the case. Yeah.
what does the ideal day look like? And you were saying, I love spending
Yeah.
a day in a hot tub. Imagine you could do business in a hot tub, because that is part of
Just
the
imagine.
lifestyle that you love. And I always encourage people
Exactly.
to get clear on what your ideal day looks like. So it doesn't have to be this old conditioning of I have to go to an office. I have to work 9 to 5, or what most people do, like 9 till 9, on my job because I
Right,
have to earn a
right,
certain
right.
wage. It's like, what if I could shed all of that conditioning, societal conditioning, and go, what would an ideal day look like for me? And how would my work life fit around that? Just kind of like reprogramming yourself,
Exactly.
going back to the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll come back to your question because what you're just describing there to me is leading a life of fullness, leading a full life, leading a rich life in every sense of what those words mean, and allowing your experience and your experiences to inform the work that you do. And this email that I'm about to read, which is effectively my story to this day in a few sentences, is exactly that. Because yesterday I had a conversation with my business partner, Matt, and he brought me back to what is something that is really fundamental to me. One word which probably holds so much of my superpower, my edge, my story, and that word is truth. And I always find that when I come back to truth, when I come back to my truth, everything makes sense, everything aligns, my words feel pure, my work feels focused, and my world just connects up. And when I deviate from my truth, which, side note, we'll come back to, we often have to do in the corporate world, we often find ourselves doing in the corporate world in order to be successful or do what's needed. When I deviate from my truth, I find that's where things go amiss. That's where things don't connect, don't land, become misaligned. I'm misaligned with the work that I'm doing. And so that's the context for what I'm about to read. Okay. And it goes like this. Yesterday, I came back to what's always been true for me. When I create from truth, I remember why I do this at all. And it's always been that way. Some of you will remember me from the early days when I was coaching strength, movement, and fitness. This was my life after corporate. My truth then was that I knew that there was something deeper trying to come through. Fitness was the doorway, but the real work was always about finding the deeper personal meaning in our work and expressing that through powerful words. Some of you found me through my books, Work Worth Doing, and The Right Clients. To me, those represent further layers of the same journey, helping people bring more of who they are into what they do. And some of you came through my business and communication work, guiding others to build from truth, to create from coherence, to speak and to serve in full alignment with who they are. And it's all the same devotion, to live and create in a way that reflects our truth, our fullness, without needing to sacrifice any part of who we are, and to let that ripple through our work, our freedom, and our prosperity. And I believe that you're here for the same reason as I am, to create from truth, to live with freedom, to remember who you really are, and live a life true to your calling. And if, like me, your truth is whispering that there's more to say, something deeper trying to come through you, a calling to bring all of you to what you do, then, and this is where it comes into something I'm running, so if you excuse me, I'll just finish what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if, like me, your truth is whispering, there's more to say, something deeper trying to come through, a calling to bring all of you to what you do, then I'd love to invite you to join me this Friday for a 90-minute session live on being more of you and earning more the more you are. Earning more the more you are. It's for those who want to lead, live, and earn from the wholeness of who they are and the fullness of the value they bring. And that's called Nicheless. It's a workshop that I'm running this Friday.
Which is a great name.
Not your normal business email, right?
No, but that's what I love about your message, really, because this is very much it's been my journey as well. It was in corporate in advertising as a designer, and having that calling, just that sense inside that this isn't it. You know, I've lost myself along the way somewhere. And like you said, I just felt like I'd taken a series of turns that weren't in alignment with my truth. So I always talk about this in these podcasts, but and I think where most people are is living in the head, which basically is your conditioning. So which is like taking on the beliefs of society and your parents or whoever it might be, and shutting off those parts of yourselves that you don't deem worthy or right. You know, it's like, well, I have to earn money, so I'm going to choose this job, which the mind is focuses on survival. So it will guide you towards a life of comfort and survival rather than passion and fulfillment. And so I worked with a coach around that time who helped me kind of explore my passions and values. I didn't even know what they were. I'd lost them along the way somewhere.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of work to do to kind of, understand what they were again. When I went through them, spirituality, healing, purpose, adventure, connection, I was like, no wonder I feel so lost, because none of this is showing up in the work that I do. It's a complete opposite of that. And so it's it's a journey that's still unfolding. 5 or 6 years of actually going through and healing myself of all these conditioned thoughts and traumas that I'd experienced through my life to actually get back to the truth of who I am. And then obviously, with entrepreneurship, it's such a powerful journey then to share that slowly but surely, all of yourself, and to be, the more I've noticed anyway, the more vulnerable and authentic I can be with my story, the more it emotionally resonates with other people then, which I guess, is, you would say the same in what you've
and that can be scary,
right?
That vulnerability and authenticity. Mark, I'm glad you mentioned values and vision. That's a topic really close to my heart too. It's exactly what the first book is on, work worth doing, aligning your value with your values and using that to make a meaningful mark on the world, but also meaning and money in your life too, right? And when it comes to values, you make a point there that actually we don't often know what they are. And oftentimes I find that values and vision, this is the reason I wrote the book, actually, what I'm about to share with you, that values and vision seem to be, to many, these abstract, esoteric ideas that everyone knows is really important, but no one really knows what they are or how to actually determine what theirs are and what that means. Like, okay, so I've got my values, great. They're these words on a piece of paper that, that sound great, or, in corporate, they might be, you'll have, you might bring in a corporate consultant. I was that guy, by the way.
I remember reading a post you wrote about that. Yeah,
a consultant to help determine your values and your vision, and they go up on the wall, and no one knows what the F they mean, because they're actually meaningless, and that's my worst nightmare. So for me, values and vision are actually meant to be true guides. Values are meant to be our guides and our edges. They're meant to be the very thing that brings us back to the essence of who we are. So mine are honesty, responsibility, and respect, and they guide everything. They guide that post that I wrote today. They guide the decisions that I make about who I work with. They guide how I show up in every respect. And vision too. I was tuning into this before this discussion, the idea of vision, and knew it would come up, because I feel that. And tell me what your experience is, Mark, your experience and your experience with your clients, that oftentimes in the corporate world, one of the things that gets quashed and quelled is vision. And by vision, I really mean our own desires. Like, our own calling and our own desires. We tend to lose that along the way, I find, in the corporate world, in pursuit of success and safety and the life that we believe that we need to lead and the person we believe we need to be in order to do what we need to do, put food on the table. But we know it doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't have to be like that. And this is the thing. I mean, I often I write a variation of this in a lot of my posts, but I always say, if you don't know your own purpose, then what tends to happen is you will fall in with somebody else's. And I think that's generally what when we talk about corporate, that's generally what's happened. Nobody in our education system has talked to us about these things. Or maybe that's changing now, but certainly in my past, it was like, well, here's a set of subjects. Maybe there's something you can find that feels, not even feels right, but you could earn money from, basically. And then there's no path of like, maybe you could be an entrepreneur and create something for yourself. It's like, literally, you need to find a job and fit into it, basically. And there's no talk about, what your own vision for your life is. Like I said, what your values are, what your passions are, and it's very much like find yourself a job and fit into it. So that's why I say if you haven't done that work, which so few of us have actually done, it's something like nearly 80% of people feel disengaged in the work that they do, according to global studies. I'm always quoting that one, but I think that's such an indictment of the society we've been living in. So what tends to happen is we just fall in with somebody who has done that work, has created a business, and now is offering jobs in that business. So you're kind of like fitting yourself into, like you said, a square peg in a round hole. Well, I'll try to fit myself into this, and that company's values and that company's mission and that company's vision it's very hard to find a job whereby the business's purpose fits exactly with your own. And in my case, it was almost the exact opposite. I was selling mobile phones, I was selling baby formula, investment funds,
right?
Yes.
That's the key to what you're saying here, I think, Mark, that you're sacrificing parts of yourself in order to move towards this goal, in order to find work and do work and just be in that world. And that's the hard part, right? Because if we're sacrificing parts of ourselves in order to do anything, then there's always going to be something missing, because there's literally a parts of us that we have left behind, things that were important to us, or parts of who we feel that we are, that we feel we had to leave behind, shut down, not talk about, dismiss, in order to be who we need to be. So that could be, for example, the joy that you have as inherently in yourself as an individual, but you feel that when you're at work, you need to be the professional. And then over a period of years, that joy tends to dissipate. It could be that, and this was one for me, it could be that truth is really important to you, but what you experience in the corporate world is that actually being true and authentic and vulnerable wasn't really supportive to your career. And in fact, loads, other people around you might be being the opposite. They might be being disingenuous, and they might be being inauthentic in order to further themselves. And you are realizing that that's not an environment that you thrive in. That's not a world that you want to be in. But at the same time, you feel like you have to. And Mark, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like your people are a step ahead of what we're talking about here. That those listening to us talking here are going to be people who they feel this dissonance already. Yeah. Like they feel they feel a disconnect with where they are and a calling into something more, something greater. They're starting to move through the work personally. That is what we might call an awakening, and even seeing and experiencing that corporate and commercial success without fulfillment is a form of torture. Is a form of suffering in that there's this inherent disconnect between our external realities and our internal self. And I know that's a topic you talk about a lot, Mark. And if there is, to feel in alignment, to feel in synchronicity, to feel in connection, we know that our external matches our internal. Our external is a reflection of our internal. And so actually, okay, cool. If if our external environment is full of frustration and disingenuity and falseness, then we kind of inherit that at the same time. And then we've got these patterns that we've collected along the way that we need to understand and disconnect from and release from, effectively the identity, the pace and the patterns of the corporate world, in order to actually come back to who we are, in order to come back to ourselves, and in order to to be ourselves in the business world. And so, yeah, is that the type of people who we're talking to here? Would you say, Mark?
Very much so. I mean, I've got I offer a free purpose alignment assessment, which I'm always promoting because that gives me a really good understanding of, and hopefully the person as well, about where exactly they're at. I break it into 4 sections, which is self-awareness, which is essentially where you are in terms of the inner work, passion and values, work fulfillment, and then future vision. And what I generally find is that the self-awareness section is higher, so it's in a decent place. Passion and values, good. Future vision is usually okay, and then work fulfillment will be in the red. So it's like, I'm always saying about this because it's like the inner world is in a certain place. They're upgrading internally. It's like a new version of themselves is
Totally.
coming in.
Exactly.
But the external, and this is where I was 5 years ago, the external, the work situation is like completely out of alignment with that new version of themselves that is coming in.
Yes.
And so there's like a big, it's like, there's a layer to be shed there, but it's a very daunting one to work on. And often it's the most difficult, because it's so and much of our identity is tied up in it, and the safety and the survival, etc.
Totally. And what you have hit on there is so much of what I see in entrepreneurship, in the business world, meaning that so much of the, let's see, where do we even start with this? Probably when it comes to I'm going to start from the start. So but when it comes to making money from this, because that's important, right? We have connected into this pattern that coming from corporate, that in order to make money, we have to sacrifice parts of who we are. That pattern might have, that and or other patterns might have been true from our childhood and our adolescence when it comes to money.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm making a bit of a generalization here, but if we can say that, okay, cool, many people, in order to fulfill their roles in corporate, are sacrificing parts of who they are, then the thing that we need to be really mindful of when coming into entrepreneurship, exactly like you're saying, is how do we create from the wholeness and the fullness of who we are? How do we make sure, to be blunt, that the pattern doesn't repeat? How do we ensure that when we come into business, we don't create ourselves another scenario where
we create corporate in a business?
Corporate in a bit where we are successful but unfulfilled, right? Where we are operating from a place of sacrificing who we are. And it's without doing the inner work, without doing the work that creates this level of awareness. And then from there, and I think this is probably the point where, like, you and I intersect and almost my work takes form, is how do we in business then make the external represent the internal? Like how do we allow, how do we allow for that to happen? And it's really, okay, recognizing that those patterns are probably present in the way that we earn money. And so we need to really examine our relationship with money, need to examine our understanding of what's our money story, what to use phrases that your people, I'm sure, are going to start to be familiar with. What level of consciousness are we operating from with money? Are we operating from a consciousness of integration and wholeness and freedom, or are there patterns of leaving ourselves behind? Are there patterns of guilt? Are there patterns of grief? And those sound like strong things, but oftentimes I found so many entrepreneurs are carrying those patterns in to their work as entrepreneurship. For example, a common one will be that, okay, I need to continue to do in and give in order to be worthy. And when I stop doing, like, I don't, and this is makes sense, right? From corporate, when
Yeah.
I stop doing and when I
Time for
stop
money.
giving,
Mm.
I like, I'm not worthy. Worthy meaning worthy of money, worthy of love, but that pattern carries over. So we have to examine these relationships and really do the work on where money meets energy and consciousness in order to find ourselves at a place where we are at a place where we can earn from being ourselves, like earn from a place of like clean money and clean energy, where we're not sacrificing, pushing, driving, and grinding in order to earn money. And that's where we see 80% of entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
In that house. And then when we try to expand when we try to evolve and expand as entrepreneurs, if our nervous system is caught in a lower level of consciousness, it's going to try to contract us back to things that feel safe. And if we're doing things that feel safe and in a survival mentality, we're not going to be in full expression of ourselves. If we're not going to be in full expression of ourselves, well, that's what we get paid for ultimately, to be in leaders, to be as leaders, to be on the edge, to be in full expression of ourselves, and to be delivering fullness and confidence and clarity and truth to our people, right? So, and then the next layer is like, okay, when we understand that, when we do the work on money, it's like, okay, how do we take that into, we've done the work. This is where the internal meets the external. How do we shape that into how do we bring that to the work that we do with our people? Like, how do we then allow all of us to be present and true in the work that we do? And that's for many reasons. We want that, right? Like, we want that to be fulfilled, fully filled fully. Like, it all makes sense. The clues in the word, the clues in the name. And so then it's a case of, okay, well, from the corporate world, what happens? Our worth gets tied to external validation. It gets tied to appraisals. It gets tied to, praise from our boss. It gets tied to awards or certifications or whatever it might be. Promotions. Yeah, exactly. And so when we move into entrepreneurship, again, it's being really mindful of these patterns, understanding how to meet them and understanding how to create the opposite. And in the business world, what that typically looks like is narrowing and niching that you tie, because you tie yourself to an external category. So you say, like I did, okay, I'm a fitness coach, where actually I was a coach's coach, I was a communication coach, I was a meaning coach, I was so many different things. But I'm a fitness coach because coming out of corporate, that's the very first thing that I did. Oh, because people will understand that. But I soon, on the positive side, I knew there was more to me. On the negative side, if you like, there was a lot of frustration there, and a lot of like, I'm so much more than this. How can I express this? And so the opposite of that, instead of dialing into a niche, is discovering your superpower, is understanding, okay, what is it about who I am? What is it about how I am? What is it about how I work? What is it about how I even showed up before corporate, in corporate, how I show up to my friends, to my family, when I'm at my best, when I'm in my zone, when I'm in my flow, when I allow those things to happen? What is it? Like, what is the through line of all of that? For me, it's truth. For me, my superpower is truth without sacrifice. That is me when I'm at my best, and that's how I serve people at my best, helping them to be in their truth without sacrificing themselves, their health, their relationship, or any parts of themselves. So if we understand where we're at with money, and we understand where we're at with our value and power, now we're starting to build into a place where we can be successful and fulfilled. And then it follows on, and how it follows on is in our marketing and our sales, like how we express ourselves. Can we bring, like you said, can we be vulnerable and authentic? Can we bring our fullest self into our marketing, rather than defaulting back to this narrow, agenda-driven messaging, which we see so much on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, which just feels incohesive, incongruent, sometimes incoherent, and inconsistent. And probably the most important one, as we then develop as entrepreneurs into the future, is the advice about, and I actually remember you and I talking about this, Mark, back in the day, the advice about business funnels and how you actually build your business. And this is wild, because oftentimes the traditional business advice will be, right, okay, so you create this, and then you create this funnel, and you kind of set it and forget it, and you lock it in, and you get people to move through this like singular approach for a single audience. But what happens then? Well, as humans, it is in our human nature to evolve. Like, the whole purpose of our existence here is to evolve and to adapt into fuller expression, right? And so as we continue to follow that calling, if we continue to follow that calling, then we do evolve. And the mismatch in entrepreneurship comes right back to the same mismatch in corporate. And it's that we evolve, but our business doesn't. If we've set it up that way, we evolve, but it's difficult for us to evolve our business. And that comes if you've tied yourself down to a niche. That comes if you're saying, I'm this type of person that does this thing, but you know that there's more to you. That comes when you have, when you've just created this whole business structure, which has tied you to doing one specific set of things with one specific outcome at one specific price point, and you're moving people through this rigid idea. Because what are your choices when you evolve then? It's like, ditch everything and burn it to the ground. Go back and build everything from scratch, rather than from the start. And this is the key for me. How can I build my business in a way that it represents me from the start, and it's built for expansion and evolution? It's built so that you can do workshops and webinars on things that are edgy and exciting to you. And because of the way that you've created your ecosystem, you get to bring that to your people, and your people receive that, because the whole time you've been coming from a place of energy, aliveness, vision, values. And so when you say, okay, this is the stuff that's really lighting me up right now, your people are like, oh, well, not only does that sound interesting, but this guy's doing what lights him up. This person's doing what lights them up. I want to do what lights me up. There's a meta effect happening here. And then as you continue to build, there are ways to build that are not so rigid, not as rigid as most business advice would have you build. There are ways that actually you can bring in clients and create business structures that allow for you to flow, that allow for you to evolve, that allow for you to actually bring your latest and greatest to your people, and for your people to want, need, and expect that. And to me, that's my life, thankfully, and my work. And that's the dream, because it allows me to be me. It allows me to not be a past version of me, not leave any parts of me behind, but be in my fullest expression.
Wow. I don't know about anybody else. I'm learning a lot here. I'm just kind of thinking through my business, because I've rebuilt mine a few times based on various people that I've worked with, communities and coaches. I'm just kind of thinking now I kind of pinpoint places in my own business probably where I've done things that I've just been told, okay, that's like for example, a email follow-up, automated email follow-up. I'm kind of thinking, yeah, you're probably right there. That is quite a rigid structure that I built there as part of a funnel, which is kind of like what you was always taught, wasn't it? Like you said, there's multiple things there that just kind of like, you just hear so many times, like pick a niche or pick a micro niche. For anyone who's kind of new to it, it might be that, for example, one entrepreneur I know, financial advisor, but he targets medical professionals. So you're kind of picking a certain type of person that you would work with.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because then you're targeting that person that he, as your messaging, knows that it's right for them. Yeah. But since kind of hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh, maybe that that doesn't have to be the case, or maybe you can change as you go, and that's kind of what I've done, because I was targeting more
the
kind
only
of
way, Mark,
spiritual.
to dial in that is to get more specific, right? So the only way to, okay, so if you niche, the only way to, I serve medical professionals, right? Oh, my message isn't landing. Well, what can I do? I can either open it up. I don't know how to do that. So, or I can narrow it down more. I serve medical professionals between the ages of
Yeah.
30 and 40. So we're just narrowing ourselves down even more. Whereas, well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the type of people. So this is a good phrase to lead us into a good way of thinking here. The type of people. If you're starting with that, you know that you're starting to break out of the idea of niching. The
Right.
type of person who is in a place of work, position, job, or line of work that they are feeling disconnected from, that they know that there's something more to. They know there's something more to them. They are driven but disconnected. They are successful but unfulfilled. These are psychographics rather than demographics.
Yes,
They,
I see what you mean.
they know that there's something more to them. They're done with being on the treadmill of supposed success and are ready to explore what could be next when it comes to living a life that's more fulfilling and doing work that's more rewarding. How much does that open up the possibility for, number one, the amount of people that you could serve, and opens up the scope of the work and the transformation that we can do with those people?
It's really interesting, because there's kind of, what I noticed is there's kind of two kinds of people that seem to be drawn to me. That is the senior professional in corporate, who got to the point where I was, where they realized that there's, they've hit the end of the line there, and they're not that calling for something deeper and more fulfillment. They've lost themselves along the way. Or kind of somebody that's kind of early stage entrepreneurship, and like you said earlier, has kind of built the same pattern in their business. So they're still feeling, they built the business, they got, an element of freedom, but they've realized that, I'm still unfulfilled. I built this thing, and that for me is because they haven't actually cleared away a lot of the old conditioning, the patterns that are built up during their life. So that's why so much of my focus initially is on healing. Okay, we've got to clear this old energy out first. Otherwise, you will loop in the same pattern. You build a business, you'll create the same situation unconsciously that you experienced in corporate. So it's interesting.
And Mark, I put it to you. I put it to you here that, and here's the shift, that those aren't two different types of people. They are the same person at different points on their journey.
Yeah, true. Yes. Yeah, and there's numerous other things that you said there that I want to touch on. What I like is when you kind of pull apart something that I've naturally assumed to be the way it's always done. Like the one you said the other day about not targeting pain points. Well, hang on, I've heard that advice by dozens of coaches in the last 5 or 6 years. Like, you always get clear on the pain points of your particular client, and then you talk about them. Maybe it's a Monday, but I tend to do it on a Monday, where it's like, okay, let me put myself in the shoes of this person, what I was experiencing, and go through the real frustration and the disconnection and the longing for more. But then you said the other day, like, actually not targeting pain points. So that's the first time I've heard that. So that kind of made me sort of think a little bit differently about that.
And tell me this, Mark, when, like, if we come back to truth, where we started this whole conversation, and invitation to you here to step into your, like, your deepest truth of this situation. How, I know how this feels for me. How does it feel to you to market like that? How does it feel to market to people's pain points?
Yeah, I guess it kind of puts you in a kind of lower energy state. Because I'm putting myself in their shoes and where I was, it might put them in a place of more kind of desperation, lack. I'm just thinking about it now. what are the kind of responses I get from a post like that, as opposed to something that is more aspirational and positive.
Yeah.
Generally, what I find gets the biggest response is when I go and share my story, my own unique story,
Yeah.
the challenges I've experienced, and how the lessons I learned on the way, and how it got to move to where I am today. Those are the ones that really kind of
because
connected on an
there's
emotional level.
connection and inspiration there. And I'll come. Thanks for your honesty on that, Mark. I'm with you. And should we dive into that for a minute or two on the pain point? Because I think,
sure.
I imagine people listening to this are still going to be scratching their heads a little bit at that and thinking, well, hold on a minute, I've heard that too, and what's wrong with it? And I think what you said there, Mark, would give them a bit of insight. So there's a couple of things to it. As you said, as conscious, evolved entrepreneurs, as people who are connected to the world of energy and consciousness, we recognize that when we market in that way, well, first of all, it is marketing from a lower level of consciousness. It's marketing from, speaking to and stirring pain as well. If we're people tell us to do that, right? They tell us to stir the pot of pain when it comes to marketing. And yes, people, it's important for people to see people need to be able to feel the pain. This is also stages of healing, right? Like, pain is not something we want to avoid. People need to be able to merge with the pain, to be able to feel that in order to create change, right? In order to connect to their energy, in order to deepen their connection. So we're not saying that pain is a bad thing, but what we're saying is, what type of energy does that put you in? How does that pervade to the rest of your communication, creation, work? Who are we actually creating this for? Are we creating it because the people, if we're creating from a place of lack and scarcity and desperation, if that's the energy that's driving our creation, I can guarantee that if someone is in that form of marketing, their business will be created from that place as well. And what happens is we attract those people. So the cycle just proliferates. We attract people who are in lack and scarcity. For your people, Mark, for my people, and for the people who we want to attract. We want to attract people like ourselves. We want to attract people who are in a higher level of consciousness, who are connected to purpose, who are driven and ambitious, and all the good stuff. So what does that mean? Here's what works instead of pain points. Helping them to see the gap between where they are and the gap between where they are and where they want to be. I'll say that again. Helping them to see the gap between where they are and where they want to be. If you want to take it one layer further, helping them to see the gap between where they are and who they want to be.
Right.
Because if you're most of the time, it's not that they are going to be unaware of their pain points. It will be that they've met them, and we can connect and allude to, okay, this is your situation, and this is how you might be feeling, and this is where you want to be. And or just hint at that, this is the person you need to become. And if we can help to support them in seeing that gap and finding a way to bridge that gap between the vision they undoubtedly have and are connected into, because they're that type of person. Cool. Now I know I'm speaking to the right people. I know that I'm speaking to people who are already connected into both the frustrations and the vision of where they're at. They know what they want, and they know that they need to evolve to get there, and they just don't know the hows of that. Cool. Okay, we can have a conversation. This is going to be a good conversation between with good people.
Yeah, it's a great point. Which I hadn't quite thought of it like that. I mean, a great example was, I shifted my business and ideal client in the past year, really. And before that, I was focusing more on what I call spiritual seekers, And I was talking more about my healing journey. So my own mental
Right.
health problems that I experienced from 2012 and how I healed them along the way. And how I found this method I call energetic mirroring, which helped me integrate a daily practice that helped me heal myself over time. And so I was focusing a lot about that, but I was people that were showing up, beautiful people, but they were very spiritually minded, but didn't necessarily have the resources to invest in themselves. Oh, I love the work. I want to be involved in this. And it was like, but I've got no resources. I've got no money. It was like, what's going on here? The same pattern. So that's why I had to shift my own targeting towards, okay, who would I love to show up on a call with me? Okay, it's someone like I was 5 years ago. Okay, I'm resourced.
Right. Yes.
I'm really committed to my personal evolution, but I'm not completely I'm careful how I word this, but I'm not completely lost in life or feeling broken.
Yeah, they're not lost or
emotionally.
broken. You're right.
Exactly. Yeah, which is what I was getting showing up. So I was like, okay, I want a really empowered person. Okay, they may be wanting to work on maybe some issues that I want to work on in their life, but actually they are resourced energetically, financially, and they're just looking for the next level of evolution. Yeah. So that was a big shift for me in the last year.
That's your true belief, right? Like you, I'm sure you don't believe that people are broken. We believe that people are whole, and they're finding their way back to their wholeness, right? And so marketing to pain points is really marketing to something that we don't actually believe to be true. Like we don't actually believe that people are broken, and so we don't believe it. Then you've shared, and I really appreciate this. You've shared a brilliant example of alluding to a business or marketing thing, like advice that you have come to realize by coming back to you and coming back to your truth, literally coming back to you, because your best clients are previous versions of you. Coming back to you, you realized is not true and is not true for you. So absolute respect for you for undergoing that journey. And isn't it interesting, side note, that from what I understand, your previous niche target market was actually based on one particular methodology, and now you've expanded. You can serve. You've expanded your scope, and therefore you've expanded your possibility to find fulfillment, fun, and finances through that, because your opportunity to bring your value to the table to people who are willing to pay for it because of where they want to be has increased.
Exactly. Yeah, so my current program very much encompasses everything I've learned over the last 13 years or so. So it's a journey through inner purpose, which is the journey of healing and self-realization, and then into outer purpose, which is the the values and the passions and the vision. Creating something, what I call a purpose-led business. So yeah, it has evolved so much in the past year, and I'm of course open to myself and the business always evolving. And giving out the space.
That's the way.
Something else I just want to talk to you about before we finish today.
Sure.
Is intuition. And as I said at the start of the podcast, what I really loved about your coaching when I first met you inside that community was you'd have these kind of established entrepreneurs and they'd be asking you questions. Now, they wouldn't be particularly spiritually minded, which is why I thought it was really brave, where you would, we can all give a conditioned response, but I also noticed that you would stop, pause, close your eyes, and just wait for an answer to come in from somewhere else, which I thought, as I said, I've seen this before in other communities. I haven't seen it in entrepreneurship before. I thought that was very brave because most people are in their heads, they're expecting a conditioned response, which is what you get in entrepreneurship. But you actually paused and let something else come in, perhaps beyond your own conditioning. So how has that evolution come about for you in terms of connecting to intuition? Do you call it intuition, or is there kind of some other guidance that you open up to in it when you're looking for answers?
Interesting, isn't it? I love that we're talking about this. And I remember, I'm not sure there was in a session that you were in or another one, and someone else pointed that out, and they said, what was the question? They said, like, where are you getting your answers from when you close your eyes? Like, what is going on there? And honestly, the answer that I put right back in the chat to them was God.
Well, there you go. As clean as you can get it.
And like, that probably says it all in a word, but I'll expand. Yeah, it's interesting. I think if we ground this idea that we're talking about here in everything else that we've been talking about, a word that we could use here is presence, right? And because what is presence? When we're in our presence and when we're in our power, and I often think back to those calls when I'm doing visualizations and visions of of me and where I'm headed. One of the things I visualize is me speaking in front of many people. Digitally is how I envisage it, just because it's the, oftentimes the nature of my work, in the tens and in the hundreds and beyond. And I envisage that, and I tune into the person that is the person I am in that moment, the energy and the emotions that are with it. And the energy and the emotions that come with that for me are peace and presence and power, stillness and presence and connection with my truth and my power. And that's important, right? As a coach, it's our job, it's our work to be in our presence, to be in our purpose, and to be in our power. Because what's the opposite? The opposite of that is being in the past, is being in parts of us, or is being in pattern. And none of those are of service
a lot of P's.
to anything, right? Like if we're in pattern, we're coming from conditioning, like you said. If we're in our parts, that means we're not bringing our wholeness and our fullness to the situation. If we're in our path, we're not allowing ourselves to truly be in connection with the person in front of us, the situation at hand, and understand and be truly of devotion and of service, devotion in a God form and devotion in a personal and present form to that person in front of us. And to me, that is my intent. My intent is, how can I be a fullest and deepest service, holding nothing back, gatekeeping nothing to this person in front of me? And I know that I know what I know, and I also know, and we also know, that the intelligence that lies both within us and not like in our bodies and not in our brains, and the intelligence that lies within us stroke beyond us in the universe and in God, although both of those things are within us, is limitless. And so when I'm tuning in that moment, when I'm closing my eyes and seeing what's there, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm checking in, seeing what feels alive and real, and seeing what feels true, what's coming up in my body, what that intelligence of my full being is showing me. And this might sound wild to some people, less so to others, but if there are any messages coming through, if there's something that's coming through to me, that is an intuition, that is a download, that is a message from God, of something that is, because when I'm in alignment, when I'm in connection with my body and my truth, then I'm in a place where I'm ready, willing, and open to receive and to give at the same time. And that enables me to, I think about it like when we are in alignment, higher powers support our higher calling. And I want to bring others into their highest alignment. I want to bring others to their higher purpose and their higher calling. And I think the gods in the universe support that. And so, and I believe that's part of the reason why, when we're in alignment, when we're in presence, when we're in connection, we get these downloads, these ideas, these creative hits, as other people might connect to them, that allow us to be of our highest service, because we're doing God's work. We're doing, we're being of highest service. We're serving our mission in this world. And for me, it's how do we get to do that as much as we can? How do we get to do as much of our fullest, most open, most powerful, most present work, keeping ourselves away from the patterns and the parts of us, keeping ourselves true to the purpose and the presence and power? And how can we create a business and a business structure and a way of doing business that allows for all of that to take place as much as possible?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's really interesting, because this is essentially what I call it intuitive coaching, similar to what I do with my clients, because I find if I'm coaching, talking from the the head, if somebody is experiencing some overwhelm in their life, for example, and we're just talking back and forth, I find that nothing really shifts. Like they're still in it, you know. So what I generally do, half of my sessions with coaching sessions with people is talking, and half of it is then what I call being. So we're just dropping into meditation. And if they've got a question in the middle of the meditation, I'll say, okay, bring up that question for yourself and just give space for whatever wants to come through. There's a really interesting example the other day where there's one client was talking about, what's one thing he could do right now to step into his full potential or align with his purpose. I think his words were something along those lines.
Yeah.
And, I could have given an answer from my conditioned mind, right, put a post out today or, put a video out today, something like that. But I just thought, I've learned enough now to know that I don't have all the answers. I can't possibly know all the answers myself. I'm just one small human being. And we just sat in meditation and just bring that question to mind and see what comes through and open us up. We've done enough of this work that he was able to just kind of like open up to whatever wants to come through. And the answer that came through was for him to do some kind of like a freestyle dance on Instagram for all his followers. And I was like, I thought that was amazing because it just sounded so true. It was so true for him. And he did it actually later in the day. I was like, he's incredibly brave to do that. But I just thought, how amazing, because there's no way I would have given him that answer. Absolutely no way. But his truth, his answer was to do that. And that was the thing he needed to do. So I agree. I always say like that intelligence we can access from the mind is like a puddle of water. But when we drop into the body and we open up to that universal intelligence, call it God, call it spirit, whatever you want to call it, it's like accessing the ocean of intelligence. And whatever wants to come through can come through. But it's about very much getting the conditioned mind out of the way, or just putting it aside, I should say, to allow it to come through. Because when we're in our thinking mind, we're in our conditioning, which means we're quite limited in terms of the intelligence we can access.
Yeah. And Mark, would you say that there's a world in which like our whole being comes into it, as in, mind, body, soul, gut are all connected? Like we've learned to understand and be the observer of the conditioned mind, and we are able to actually bring in our logic and have it live side by side with the love.
Exactly. This is what I always say to people, because a lot of what you hear when you go into spirituality, I heard it a lot in Buddhism, is like it's killing the ego thing. The intellect. You should be in a thoughtless state when you meditate, but you've learned over time that's more ego. That's more resistance. What you resist persists. So if you're trying to silence your thoughts, the ego, the intellect, then it goes stronger and stronger. So really, I would say what you want is the ego or the intellect thinking mind in the passenger seat, and you want awareness in the driver's seat, so you can listen to what it's saying, but it's not driving the car. You still got your hand on the wheels, and you can just listen to what it's saying, and then you can choose.
And the reason that I mentioned this is because some of my best clients recently have been those who are very logic focused. They've got logical businesses. Maybe it's an AI business or a systems and outsourcing business, or it's like a web and website creation and tech based business. And they are learning to bridge the world between their logic and intuition, and they're learning to they're learning to create a world where both of those things are present in their work and present in their superpowers. And I don't know about you, Mark, but how much does the world crave those intersections in where we have a website designer who can understand what's connecting to what's in our heads to really help us to not only shape our website but shape the ideas that go into it. I mean, that's my dream to be able to connect into someone like that, for example. And those people, superpowers often exist in cross sections and intersections of things that you don't usually find together, right? And so just wanted to explore the nuance in what you were saying there, in terms of at a certain part of the journey we're told to kind of to release from the mind and get into the body, and then later on I believe it comes back in terms of actually how can we honor all parts of us in this journey.
Yes, I always say it's an incredible tool we've been gifted, the intellect. So it's not about binning it or silencing it.
Exactly.
And certain people, like you say, certain clients I have, very intuitive, and it's like, wow, things start happening and opening up to all kinds of messages, and they progress very quickly with the work. And some people are coming in, they're very much. Some people coming in, they've been living in their heads their whole life, and it takes a lot longer. But I always say, like, it's just trust your own process, because that mind will always will compare. Oh, that person, they're getting all of that. I want that. Trust your own journey, their own pace of the journey. Yeah,
I love that.
Well, Chet, there's so much more I want to talk about. I wanted to get into the future and AI and all that, but let's leave it there today. So we got something to go into next time. But incredible. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom today, Chet. And I'm sure everyone watching got a lot from that as well. Where would you direct people to? Would you direct people to social, or do you want to? Oh, you did mention the nicheless workshop.
Yeah, so two things there
in the chat.
Great, yeah. So nicheless is, if you're watching this live or you're watching this before the 14th of November, Friday the 14th of November, nicheless is a 90-minute live session that me and my business partner Matt are running that really connects to so much of what we're talking about today, and is in itself an expression of what we're talking about today. This work is work that I talk about with passion and aliveness because it's really important to me, and my work reflects that. And nicheless is a reflection of this energy that we're discussing today. So yeah, nicheless, the idea is scaling up without niching down. How do we put all of this into action? And we're going to show you the roadmap to do that through money, through mastery, through your superpower, through your marketing, and through your business model too. And otherwise, and out with that, well, we might be running that workshop again, and there'll be other stuff to come. But yeah, connect with me on socials, Chet Morjaria, just as you see it on screen, all one word. If you type that into, well, that's my name. You'll find me as Chet Morjaria, of course, on any socials. And yeah, my handle tends to be Chet Morjaria on most socials. Yeah.
That's the advantage of having a unique name, isn't it? You can't. There's probably
really
not two.
Is. Yeah. It really is. Thanks.
Perfect.
Mark.
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll drop it in the About section below. Chet's LinkedIn and the link to that workshop. It sounds incredible. I was reading about it earlier today, so I might join you for that one as well.
I'd love to have you there, Mark.
Yes, and hopefully we can do this again soon, because there's so much I want to talk about other aspects of entrepreneurship and get your view on it. Because like I say, it's a very, in my experience, it's quite a unique view you have on a lot of things, and hopefully can, help people step into the fullest version they are. Like you said, not having to, like you did in corporate in your career, sort of like dimming your light, fitting into a certain role that doesn't feel like you. Let's not do the same in our businesses. Let's try and, because what I said before, it's a journey. I think of a powerful, journey that can go alongside your healing. They work together. The business entrepreneurship brings up stuff, self-doubt, procrastination, imposter syndrome, all this stuff comes to the surface. And then if you know how to process it and heal it, you don't have to continue to get stuck on the journey. You can go, okay, thank you. You showed me that thing.
Yeah.
Let me go inside and heal this stuff. And you can continually move through the levels to your next level of your expansion. So that's why I love it as a journey.
And have our business and our income reflect that, right?
Exactly. And there are no limits. Beautiful chat. Well, I'll leave it there for now. And yeah, let's do this again at some point. Thanks so much for joining.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.